where we stop. Yeah, so we stopped here last lesson, I think. Yeah. So today we want to finish up the chapter on network scanning. So last lesson we started this chapter, last two lessons. So we were talking about the use of nmap to try to scan the network for the ports. So different techniques we have been using. For example, we were using the TCP scan, and the TCP scan basically has a mmap-st parameter. Okay, so this is one of the parameter we can use. The other one is the stealth scan. So stealth scan is using this dash small s big S followed by the IP address. So stealth scan is a little bit less easy to detect compared to the TCP scan. So the TCP scan has 3 packets, whereas stealth scan has only 2 packets. So that is why it is less easy to detect a stealth scan. We also touched on the Christmas scan. As the name suggests, the Christmas scan is based on the flags, urgent flag, push flag, and also the pin flag. So these 3 flags will give you different response on the computer. So for the targeted system, depending on the OS, it can be Linux, it can be Windows, the response will be different. Okay. So if there's open port, the response usually is not, there's no response. Whereas if the port is closed, for Linux, it is usually returned as a reset. Okay. For Windows, I think it returns something else, I can't remember. Then also fin scan is another scan which can be used to evade firewalls. So most firewalls and packet filters detection, including your IPS. So again, this one is only applicable for the older version of the firewall and the IPS. With the newer FortiGate and all that, this method does not work. So usually what we do is we will send a finish flag, and the finish flag will receive a response depending on the computer. If the target is port is open, it will not respond anything. If the port is closed, it is not open, you will receive a reset signal. This is for Linux. For cases where you have a firewall, sometimes you have a built-in firewall like Microsoft Defender, you may receive a ICMP error packet. Okay, so this is if the firewall is installed. And then also we will cover this now scan. So now scan is another scan we can use to scan the target. Okay, for example, if you set the packet without any flag, now scan means no flag. That means there's no urgent, there's no push, there's no fin flag, nothing, totally empty. The whole header is empty. You will not get any response if the port is open. However, if the port is closed, usually you will receive a reply, either a reset or acknowledge. All this we don't really need to know because the mmap will try to scan and tell us the result. So we don't really need to remember exactly what is the reply of each scan. So just different kinds of scan to get the different possible results. So TCP acknowledge scan or X scan uses the ICMP pings. So the moment we do a ping command, we will be using this acknowledge scan. So this is essentially X scan. So X scan works by setting the acknowledge flag, and if the port is not filtered, that means it is just the server itself. It usually will returns a reset reply. However, if there is a firewall or some device in between, right, you either get no response or you get ICMP error. Again, this one is not consistent. Depends on the operating system. Depends on the operating system and also the versions of operating system. For example, Windows XP and Windows 7 will behave differently from Windows 10, etc. So the behavior will slightly differ. Yeah, we also talk about aggressive scan. So aggressive scan is using the -A option. So -A or -all, so capital A will basically allow us to see all the results, okay, from the port numbers to the service to the version number of the service and so on. So this will be the results that we will see. The only negative thing about aggressive scan is, first of all, is very slow. So it will take quite a bit of time to come up with the reply. Okay, it's very slow, either around 10 or 15 minutes if you are lucky. Sometimes may take half an hour per scan. So this is one of the drawback. The other drawback about aggressive scan is it is very noisy. So that means if you are a hacker, you're trying to hack a bank, you don't want people to catch you, try not to use aggressive scan. Because if you use aggressive scan, uh, everybody will know that you are there. Okay, so it's very noisy, and be prepared. The police will come and catch you immediately the moment you run this aggressive scan. So these are the drawbacks of aggressive scan. Let's take a look at the MF feature. So as mentioned before, MF has certain features which we can use. Most of the time in our course, we'll be using the host discovery, OS discovery, service discovery, and port scanning on that. And to a certain extent, we use some scripting also. Scripting is a way for the MF to automate the process. Okay. Why do we need automation? Because in the current cybersecurity world, a lot of the attacks, cyber attacks, are launched by bots. You know what's a bot? B-O-T, bot, short for robot. Okay. So basically, it's a set of robotic computers or servers. So these robotic servers or computers are like zombies and they are infected with certain malware. So at the moment when they receive a trigger signal, they will start to transmit whatever they are programmed to do. For example, if they are doing a DDoS attack, they will send a lot of packets to a designated IP address so that you can actually so far overwhelm the server and so on. So this is where scripting will be useful because if we are going to neutralize the bot, or sometimes they call it the botnet. A series of robotic computers is called a botnet. Okay, robotic network. So if there are a lot of the robotic computers or robotic servers programmed to attack a server, it can be in the numbers of hundreds of thousands. So if we are going to do the mmap scan manually, then first thing is too slow because there are thousands of them trying to attack a server. Second thing is you will be very tired. Like what you learn in the IFS, right? Your firewall, you can actually trigger a policy to block the IP address, but that's only for one server. What happens is the botnet usually have thousands of servers, like 5,000 zombie servers. So all of them will attack your server at the same time, 5,000. So you can't possibly use your 40 gig, right? You go to every single server and block, because there are too many of them, 5,000 or something like that. So that's where scripting will be useful, because scripting will allow you to automate the process. Anytime you see a particular pattern or you detect something hostile, you can automate and make the server block it. So that's one of the nice feature about mmap. It can automate this scanning and also speed up the process. Of course, we can also use mmap for some vulnerability scanning, what we call VAPT, vulnerability assessment pen testing. So this is one of the job scope for the penetration tester if you are in the red team offensive security. So you can actually use mmap to do basic vulnerability scannings. So let's take a look at host discovery. Usually we use the mmap for scanning, and in this case we can scan for useful information such as the IP address, the ports, operating system, and etc. So these are some of the tools we can use. Then Discover is the first tool we're going to show. It can actually show you the IP address. Now, those guys, the ladies behind, can you all lower your volume? Okay, so as mentioned, NetDiscover is able to scan for IP address and MAC address, and these are the results. So usually you can see something like this, where you have the MAC address, the results of MAC address, and also the IP addresses they are currently on the screen. If you are lucky, also you can be able to see some of the host names. That is not sometimes it's not accurate. So NetDiscover is very fast and quite efficient. The other tool you can use is NetBIOS scan or NBT scan. So NBT scan uses the NetBIOS protocol to try to scan the servers. In this case, NetBIOS refers to your name of your host name. So these are the common what we call host name when we actually configure a Windows server and so on. And also NetBIOS can also find out the IP addresses as well as the MAC address. So this is a little bit better than NetDiscover. But NetBIOS doesn't work all the time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Okay, so that's why we got a couple of tools you can use. We can also use our good old mmap to scan. So for example, in this case, we use the mmap to scan for this network range 10.10.10.0/24. So all the addresses within the 10.10.10.0 network will be able to display on the screen. So this is how we generally use to discover the IP addresses. And also at the same time, we can also discover other things like your ports, your states of the port, and also the services and so on. So all these things are part of the mmap scan. Another scan we can use is the plain old ping command. So ping command will do a simple sweep to see whether the target system is active or not. This uses the ICMP protocol. So every time we do a ping, we will get a request and an echo. And this is what you can see. If you do a ping scan or ping, and this is the hi, sorry, it's a prank call. So ping scan. So basically, ping scan is your ping command. So you can actually ping all the network, all the systems in the network using this dash S capital P option in mmap. So this is what you will see on the screen. All the addresses they are listed are the active devices. Okay. OS detection. So just now what we did was to scan the IP address. Okay, so host discovery is to scan for the IP address, and we besides discovering the IP addresses, we will also try to find out other useful information. For example, the operating system. So the type of operating system we have determined quite a number of things. For example, the older Windows XP or maybe the Windows Server 2003. Or if you're using Linux, what is the different kind of Linux? For example, Ubuntu, or you're using a Red Hat, and so on. So different versions of operating systems offer different kinds of features and of course different vulnerabilities. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to know what the target is running and then exploit what is available. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the options. So in mmap, we can do what we call a dash O for operating system. So, so dash O to a target address. So we will see the operating system in this case over here. So the operating system can be a Linux kernel. They will tell you roughly what is the version from 3.2 to 4.9. And then also service version. So service version basically is more on the services or software. For example, you have different software that may be running in your computer, like for example, your email is a service. You have your Chrome browser, Firefox is also a service. You also have maybe other things like your TikTok or also your IG, Facebook. So all these are your services. Okay. So basically service refers to the software that is currently running in your computer. So by looking at the different services and their versions, we can actually detect the weaknesses that we can exploit. So to discover the service version, we can use the dash SV option. Okay, dash S capital V scan version. Okay, so when we take a look at the result, this is something that we can see. So typically, if we do a dash SV, you can see the port numbers, the corresponding state, and the services that were discovered, and their version numbers also. Okay, why is this version number important? Because quite a number of times when you do the project, you do not find any vulnerabilities. Okay, mmap is unable to find any vulnerabilities. So when that happens, what you need to do is you need to use your version of the service version, and then to Google and search online for the corresponding vulnerabilities. What do we mean? So for example, in this case, we have this system that is running a FTP, and the software version is VS FTPD 234. Okay. So what you can do is in your PA or your project, if you see this, you can actually go over to Google. So you can go over to Google and you try to search for that thing that you want to search. Okay, for example, I try and search for this VSFTPD 2.3.4. Can you see? Yeah, so I can Google for the version of the FTP software and also the number. And then you can search for the vulnerabilities in this case. So when that happens, the Google or the search result will tell you all the vulnerabilities associated with this VSFTPD 2.3.4. Okay, so mean to say when you do your PA, the next week or the week after that, you may not be able to find the exact vulnerability. So when that happens, you need to do something like this. Go and find the version number of the service and then Google for the vulnerabilities. Okay, so in this case, according to the Google, they say that VSFTPD have a backdoor weakness. Okay, backdoor means the software has a bug, and the bad guys, the hackers, can make use of the bug to enter your system without you knowing it. Okay, that's why it's called backdoor, because usually if you go by the front door, you will be blocked by the firewall and you cannot enter the system. The backdoor means that it is not visible from the firewall. The firewall doesn't know of this weakness, so you can so-called get into the system without being detected by the firewall or the antivirus. So that's why this is how you can find the vulnerabilities that are associated with the version and the service. Let me continue. So this is why we have the version detection. Okay, so you can see when you scan for the version, there will be different numbers come out. So you just need to go and Google for this engine X146 and you can see the corresponding vulnerabilities. Okay, so not all the time you'll be able to see a vulnerability in your system. Mmap doesn't show all the time, but most of the time you should be able to find them based on these version numbers. Okay, so another term which was used in the cybersecurity is what we call banner grabbing. So banner grabbing is a way to discover the information about a computer and also the services they are running on the network. Why is it called banner? Because when we actually create a web page, I don't know whether you guys know, when you try to create a web page, uh, if you look at the HTML code or HTML script, we look something like this. It's HTML something something. Okay, so if you look at the HTML code, you will be able to see some hidden information inside the HTML page. And some of the information inside there is what we call a banner because it shows you what the web page is about. But when we actually surf the net, we don't see those information. It's only in the browser itself. For example, let's say I go over to this web page. This is my web page, which I just anyhow open. To see the banner, all you need to do is just right click and go to your page source. So you go to the page source, and this is your HTML code or the script for this web page. You see the HTML code and all that. So there are some hidden information which is normally not shown on the browser, but you can actually see them. For example, in this case, we see that this web page was built for Internet Explorer Edge, uses this character set UTF-8, and so on. And a few other things like the meta property. Okay, why is the web page open depending on what the other things like metadata. Okay, I don't have time to explain all this, but basically these are some of the useful information we can use to exploit the web page, but normally we don't see it on the browser itself. Okay, so these are something like what you call the banner. So you can actually see what are the information regarding this web page. Okay, let's go back. So we can also do port scanning. So scanning the ports basically is to try and find out what are the port numbers that are available on the system. Some of the common ports you will come across quite common. Port 80 for HTTP, port 23 for Telnet, port 22 for SSH. So these are the common ports and their services you can see on the systems. Port scanning is very popular both by the attacker and the defender. So attackers like to use port scanning because they can actually know which port are available and open. Okay? So whichever open port is the opportunity for them to make use and try to exploit into the system. Also, some of the common ports you can try and find. MBAP is able to scan these top 10 ports. Okay, so the top 10 ports are usually this over here. Can you see? These are the top 10 ports. 21, 22, 23, 25. Why are they called top 10? Because usually the hackers will try to hack the system based on these ports. Guys, can you all please lower your volume? Okay, so these are the top 10 common ports that are used by the hackers. So that's why they are called the top 10 ports. And also you can try to sieve out the filtered ports, those that are running behind the firewall. Okay, for example, you can use options like packet trace a packet, or you can try to disable up ping and so on. These are a little bit technical stuff. That means you need to know a bit about ARP spoofing, ARP spoofing. You need to know a bit about the IP packets. Okay, because if you don't know about IP packets, then when they trace the packet, you probably don't know what is happening. Okay, so this one is a bit like Wireshark. So you need to know what are the different packets that are coming in. You can also scan the UDP protocol. So UDP ports, some of the ports are using UDP. For example, your FTP port 21 is using FTP, is using UDP, sorry. UDP because it doesn't do any handshaking, it just sends. So usually FTP ports are less secure. Okay, so these are less secure because there is no so-called authentication, no authentication. So there's no authentication means you don't check the identity. Anybody can also use it. You can also target the open UDP ports using this option. So UDP scan -su. So this scan is quite fast. If your system has available UDP port, you can run this. Or you can use a -f option to scan for all the top 100 ports. Uh, yeah, this is a bit annoying. I hope I'm finishing soon. Sorry, my computer very lag now. I don't know why. Okay, finishing another 5 slides, I think 5 or 6 slides. Just bear with me. They're forcing me to shut down the computer. Yeah, irritating. They keep telling me to switch off the computer. Okay, so this is the Open UDP port. Let's take a look at the mmap output. So mmap can generate different kinds of outputs in different formats. These are the formats, and you can save them for the so-called annotation later. So the most basic one will be your dash O normal. So dash O normal will look like this. This is your normal output, like what you see on the screen. The other one is the dash OG. So this is a grabbable version. So you can actually do the grab tool to examine the search. Also, the XML format, this is useful if you want to display for the management report and all that. Okay, because you can open it in the HTML browser, and also uh, you can export as a PDF or Excel and all those things.
Teacher, cannot
Uh,
see the slides.
Cannot see in the slides. Yeah, I think the system just bumped me off because the IT network wants to force me to shut down the PC. That's why they bump me off the system. Yeah. Anyway, finishing another 2 slides or 3 slides. So these are the outputs that we can get from the mmap. So as mentioned, we have this .ox format to output as in this computer. Okay, so yeah, as mentioned, we can actually output the format in the XML, so you can open in the browser or PDF and so on. So this is one example of the scanning result. So you can output to the respective file name that you indicated. For example, in this case, the file name is target. So that you can actually check the results later on after you scan. Other ways to actually store the result include this conversion, the XML format to HTML format. So this will allow you to change the file to a normal HTML file. Last few slides, scanning Windows. We can actually use on Windows ipconfig, your good old friend, to check the status of the network on the Windows. Okay, there's another command called net user. So net user basically allows us to identify the user accounts that are currently logged into your PC. Okay, so in this case, we can see the username and also the host name according for the user and so on. First name and the last name, sorry. And also netsh is for firewall. So a very basic command where you can see the firewall status. Is it enabled? Is it operational? What are the ports that are currently open and so on. So very simple command, but you can see quite a number of useful information on firewall states. And of course, you can check your Windows information. Okay, Windows information, sysinfo, okay, system info. This command allows you to see all this useful information on that. When do we use this command? Usually we use the Windows command when we are inside the system itself. So the first part that we covered just now, all this map scanning, right, is before we enter the target machine. So once we are able to enter the target machine, or we can control the target machine from another remote server, we will be able to run all these Windows scanning commands to find out more info. So basically, these are some of the techniques we can use to scan the machine. Any question? No question. Okay, anybody just come in before we mark attendance? Anybody just come in after we mark attendance? No. So I take it that just now the attendance is the same now. Okay, then in that case, that's all for me today. Thank you very much. Bye bye.